vehicle collision. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, GBNews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could spruce up your spring, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but two sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening. Hello and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. The Prime Minister is pushing world leaders to come together and crush the ruthless gangs behind illegal immigration at last. But here's the twist. Despite the urgent call for action, more illegal immigrants crossed borders in the first 3 months of 2025 than in the same period last year. I'll have the former Minister for Illegal Migration with me next here in the studio. Also on tonight's show, the Sentencing Council is delaying its two-tier guidance after the government threatened emergency legislation to block it. Now, under the rules, criminals from minority backgrounds could have avoided jail with more lenient sentences, though ethnic minorities will still be prioritised for bail. Plus, Netflix is making the controversial drama Adolescence available to all UK secondary schools with support from a charity who left Twitter X because they didn't like what Elon Musk was saying, offering guides for teachers and carers. Now, is this a positive step or another example of demonising white working-class boys? All that to come, but first, here's your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. GB News understands the Sentencing Council is to pause the controversial two-tier sentencing guidelines immediately pending the introduction of emergency legislation, which the government is due to introduce to Parliament in the next 3 weeks. The Sentencing Council was due to bring in new rules around how judges should determine punishment for people from ethnic minority backgrounds. The new law to end two-tier justice will be published tomorrow. It's to stop two-tier sentencing rules discriminating against white men. However, that law won't be enforced until after Easter, as it won't have cleared both the Commons and the House of Lords. In other news, the Prime Minister has urged more than 40 countries gathering in London today to work together to stop people smuggling gangs and treat them in a similar way to terrorists. The UK and other countries affected by people smuggling must work together, the Prime Minister said, in a landmark summit aimed at cracking down on illegal migration. Countries including Albania, Vietnam and Iraq, from where migrants have travelled to the UK, have been joining the talks alongside representatives from France, the US and China. Sir Keir Starmer added since the government came to power, Labour have returned 24,000 people with no right to be in the country. The National Crime Agency released footage of key arrests, including those linked to a major Syrian organised crime group responsible for smuggling at least 750 migrants into the UK and Europe.
And we have countries from Vietnam, Iraq, Nigeria, as well as our nearest neighbours across Europe, France, Germany, and countries like the US and China, all facing real challenges from criminal gangs that try to exploit our borders in order to make huge profits, but agreeing today new law enforcement cooperation, intelligence sharing to go after these vile criminal gangs and to tackle this terrible trade in human beings.
Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. Elsewhere, Sir Ed Davey has launched his party's local election campaign in Oxfordshire today, saying it's a two-horse race between the Lib Dems and the Conservatives. He said the Liberal Democrats were aiming to overtake the Conservatives as the second biggest party in local government, meaning there would be more Liberal Democrat-run councils than Tory ones. The launch comes after the Conservatives promised lower taxes and better services. And Reform UK said they would fix broken Britain and potholes. Labour are expected to launch their campaign in the coming weeks. In other news, an extensive search is underway to find an 11-year-old girl after she fell into the River Thames. The Metropolitan Police said it was called around 1:15 yesterday to reports the girl had entered the river near Barge House Causeway, near London City Airport. All emergency services are forming a large-scale response to the incident. And the father of Prince Andrew, accuser Virginia Giuffre, says he's praying for his daughter after she claimed she has just days to live. The mum of 3, who was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and accused Prince Andrew of sexually abusing her when she was 17, says she's suffering kidney failure after a horrific bus crash. Virginia shared a photograph from her hospital bed with her face covered in bruises. Posting on Instagram, she begged to see her children one last time. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more news in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the Prime Minister is urging world leaders to unite against illegal immigration in a bid to smash the gangs. Here he is earlier today.
Migration is a massive driver of global insecurity. It undermines our ability to control who comes here. And that makes people angry.
It certainly does, Sir Keir Starmer. Welcome to the club. And bold words indeed, because, however, the statistics tell a very, very different story. Over 30,000 migrants have crossed the Channel since Labour took office, with more arriving in the first 3 months of 2025 than during the same period in 2024. Now, the Green Party has accused the Prime Minister of simply following Nigel Farage's lead rather than implementing safe routes for migrants. So, does this suggest the Prime Minister is indeed on the right track, or is he still missing the mark? Well, I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio now by the former Tory MP and the Minister for Illegal Migration, Tom Perskilove, as well as my panel, the wonderful GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and Esther McVeigh, the Conservative MP for Tatton, and of course the former Minister for Common Sense, a commodity in short supply at the moment. So thank you for injecting some much needed common sense. Tom, let's start with you. Sir Keir Starmer today makes me angry, frankly, that the boats keep coming. Well, it makes GB News viewers very, very angry. Can we have any faith, however, in this promise? I mean, you boys promised to stop the boats. That didn't happen. This lot said they're going to smash the gangs twice today. Now, political editor Chris Oak said, well, when are you going to smash the gangs? Twice. We didn't get an answer.
Well, I mean, that's characteristic of the policy response that we're seeing, and I find myself getting more and more furious as the weeks go by, and I think that that's reflected amongst your viewers as well. Look, the proof is in the pudding here. Since Labour came to office, what we've seen is a nearly 30% increase in small boat crossings of the Channel. We've seen the reopening of asylum hotels to provide accommodation, and 8,500 more of these individuals who make that crossing accommodated in hotels. Smash the gangs was a slogan for opposition. It doesn't match up to the realities of being in government. It is lacking. I was actually very surprised that they reused that language today. What we really need is a credible policy response to
But
this.
stop the
that
boats
includes deterrence.
stop the boats was the slogan of government. You couldn't do that.
It's the right ambition, of course it is. And I've talked about this on this channel before, cautioned at the time about using the stop the boats language because it's very difficult to measure what success looks like. But I think the reality of this is that the public's fed up, absolutely fed up to the back teeth of promises and a lack of delivery. My worry is that this situation's getting worse, not better.
So do you have any faith? I mean, look, it's another get-together. It's another gathering of international diplomats. We see them every single week. It feels like nothing has changed. It was telling, I felt, how Sir Keir Starmer said, I understand these kind of wars. I was involved in the war on drugs, a war we haven't won and can't ever win. Was that a bit of a self-own? And in fact, Tom, can this ever be won without a radical change of policy, which, to be frank, the Conservatives didn't do in 14 years in power, and I don't think the viewers have much faith in the Labour Party doing it either.
Got to do something fundamentally different. Doing more of the same just isn't going to work. And there's various nice announcements that are made that add additional tools to the toolbox. Very welcome. I'm disappointed that Labour MPs, when I was trying to legislate to have life sentences for these people smugglers, voted against those life sentences. They were the sorts of measures that we need. I agree that we should elevate this to the level of terrorism in the way that the Prime Minister is suggesting. But you've got to do something fundamentally different if you are actually going to crack this. And one of the things about the Rwanda policy, you can debate the rights or wrongs of that. You can argue whether that is a desirable outcome or not. But I always used to argue, and I maintain to this day, that people losing their lives in the Channel is the worst possible outcome. These are evil criminal gangs who exploit people, put them in danger. But unless you've got a country that you can relocate people to, all you are going to have is an endless supply of people come from countries like Eritrea, Sudan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the list goes on, knowing full well, and the gangs will market this, that if they can get them to the United Kingdom on those small boats, the chances are, the very high likelihood is that they're going to be able to stay in the UK. And you can talk about processing asylum claims offshore, and there's a bit of talk about, for example, having an agreement with Albania. There was a bit of talk earlier in the media about, for example, processing claims in France. But the people who fail will probably still try and make the crossing to the UK. And, for example, all it is, really, if you're processing those claims offshore, is adding a delay into the system, because those people from those nationalities will know that ultimately they're not likely to stay in Albania because the Albanians are not going to accept everybody who's refused. A lot of those people are going to end up back in the UK because you can't send them back to the country of origin.
We've got thousands of Albanians rotting in British jails. We've got them to send back. Tom, stick with us. Going to bring my panel involved in the conversation now. Nigel Nelson, Esma McVeigh. Nigel, start with you. Sir Keir Starmer can't smash the gangs any more than I can be an astronaut. Let's be honest, it's not going to happen. It's tough talking, but where and when will that delivery actually crystallise?
Well, you might be able to be an astronaut at some point in the future, but anyway...
I can barely run for a bus, mate. Anyway, seriously, when is this mythical thing going to happen?
Well, I mean, there is no easy answer to that because there's no single answer to dealing with Channel boat crossings. So you starting a point here, today's conference, the idea of bringing 40 countries together is a sensible one. It's a global problem.
To do what?
To see if they can come up with some solutions to it. It's things like trying to break the social media business model of the gangs. That's what they were talking about today. You had
multi-billion-pound industry will be stopped by clamping down on TikTok.
No, it won't. We're not going to. Any one thing is not going to work. I mean, Tom's just talked about the Rwanda scheme. There was never any evidence it was going to be a deterrent, and you shouldn't make policy that's going to cost 700 million, which is what we lost, or 10 billion in the long run, when there's absolutely no evidence that would work, which is why Tom's senior civil servant...
Why not try it then, Nigel? Try it. Give it a go.
Because it costs 10 billion. Because it would have cost 10 billion pounds.
But if it stops this problem, that's saving you quite a lot of money in the long run.
But you really needed some evidence beforehand to see if it does. So your top civil servant in the Home Office at the time wouldn't sign it off as value for money because there was no evidence it would be, which is why you had to issue a ministerial direction to even get the policy through.
This sounds like Groundhog Day. It feels like we've had this conversation endlessly. Esther, You're the Minister of Common Sense, or you were. Bring some common sense into this, because the boats weren't stopped.
Yeah,
the gangs probably won't ever be smashed. Round and round we go. The problem piles up. The electorate, frankly, well, they're a lot angrier than Keir Starmer is about it.
Well, first of all, the National Crime Agency did say that Rwanda would be a deterrent, and actually we did see a drop in the numbers coming over when that was going through and the bill was going through. And I think there are a couple of things, because if people destroy their passports on the way over, there's nowhere to send them back to. So if you don't like Rwanda, if Labour doesn't like Rwanda, they need a third country, wherever that is. But the problem is, as Tom said, we do need a directional change. We need politicians to get a little bit stronger, because word is out there. People coming to this country know the country is an easy touch. It's not just about the criminal gangs. They know they're going to get a house, they're going to get food, they're going to get money. So they know as well, once they're here, the odds are they're going to stay here, because we've got a political class, a left-wing legal system that's actually keeping them in the country with the spin and the merry-go-round of trials.
To be fair, that happened for 14 years in a Conservative
and I'm
rule.
not disputing. I was on the very, shall we say, the right side, and I mean that in all senses, the correct side of the Conservative Party, wanting to be tougher on immigration. But I will tell you, the political class has been weak. It has been a bit too uncomfortable for them to talk about things like this. They didn't ever want to talk about immigration. They didn't want to be called racist. And actually, we've let it build up for a very long period of time, and now it is at breaking point. And that's why I say you'll need a directional change, and you'll have to be strict and tough, and sometimes maybe do unpalatable thing to stop this now.
Like what?
Well, I do think you do need your third country. I do think they're not going to get the comfort that they get when they're in this country. We're going to have to say, I'm sorry, you can't come in, and I'm sorry, you won't get a hotel, and you won't get all of this comfort.
So
and maybe we'll do offshore assessments of them and not allow them to even be in the country.
Where?
We're going to have to think of these more radical things, because at the moment we are still doing the same old, and I'm afraid the gangs and the immigrants are a lot smarter and cuter than I'm afraid our political and legal classes.
Rwanda literally didn't get off the ground. You can't count 2 voluntary returns. So where is this mythical country? We all agree offshore containment. Every expert I speak to. But where?
I think it was probably before its time, and whilst it was also caught up in a general election and Labour sort of lambasted, said it wouldn't work, and then we saw after that other countries thought this is the solution, and other countries unfortunately will gain from all of the preparation we put in, all the funding we put in, and I do think it was Keir Starmer's biggest mistake to cancel it before he gave it a go. Once it will already be paid for. America's looking at it, Germany's looking at it.
So not Rwanda, where?
No, I would do Rwanda.
You would?
Oh, I'd totally do Rwanda.
For processing or for keeping people there?
I would keep people there.
Right, well, OK.
Absolutely, I'd do both, but I would keep people there. This is a new
Despite
emerging
international
world.
law?
Well, the UN use it. America's looking to use it. Germany's
hang on, the UN used it voluntarily for Libya and for the Congo. And
it's OK for them. Is it OK for people from there?
Those people actually volunteer to go there. They're not forced to go there. They actually volunteer because they don't like the warfare going around them.
Well, can I tell you, I know Brits who volunteered to go there and now live there, and whether it's work in the financial sector or other areas. So what I'm saying is it is a new emerging part of the world. And yes, I would say, here you go, a new place to start your life. You can't all come to the UK.
OK, Tom Purslow, final word to you. It does feel like Groundhog Day. We've got Keir Starmer said this makes me very angry, frankly. Like I said, join the club. We're still saying Rwanda is the answer, despite the fact it didn't work. So,
well, it wasn't given a chance to work. That's not true.
Yeah, months and months and months for a single flight to take off. And it'd been the same problem with the same problem with the same lawyers and the same NGOs and the same charities and the same media in the future. So why should anybody have any faith in the Conservatives cracking this on the second time around?
Because we are willing to test that legislation, exactly as Esther says. We should do that. We should see if we can operationalise this partnership. I believe there's a legislative basis there now to do it. But if that can't work, I would argue that you do have to take the step to derogate away from those aspects of ECHR, or you have to be willing to leave, because what we cannot continue to have is this inability to properly control our own borders. But what's also going on is that we're rolling back, the government is rolling back various key planks of the policy and the legislative basis that we put in place. For example, your programme today talking about this peak in asylum claims amongst 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's only going to get worse because all of the work around age assessment to test the age of people is being rolled back. Those are disastrous policy choices. I don't see anything that suggests this is going to get any better.
OK, we have to leave it there. Tom, Purcell, thank you. And, of course, Nigel and Esther, a cracking start to the show. Thank you very, very much. Now, coming up next, the Sentencing Council is delaying its two-tier guidance after the government threatened emergency legislation to block it. Under the new rules, criminals from minority backgrounds could have avoided jail with more lenient sentences, though ethnic minorities will still be prioritised for bail. More on that next.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, I just posted about the event on Facebook, basically. It snowed the night before, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if... It was purely for a joke. I posted it on the meme student page. Yeah, it was purely a joke. Just wouldn't it be funny if the two unis, Uni of the Polytechnic, had a big, massive sort of Lord of the Rings style battle at the park, a snowball fight. And then I woke up the next day and just looked out the window because I live near the park and saw that hundreds of people were there. I was like, oh wow, but I really didn't expect it to be like that. And then they say, we want to come down to the station. I was like, okay, am I under arrest? Have I committed a crime? They don't answer that. They just say, we'd just like you to come down to the station. And I was like, okay, do I have to? It's like, you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to make you eventually. Yeah, we had this really, really nasty, uncomfortable interview with the two officers that conducted it. Where they not only tried to antagonize me, incriminate me, but also blame me for deaths of thousands of people around the country.
Just give us that detail, Zen, because didn't they say to you about something about a number of people who had died of COVID since your snowball fight? Yeah. Like, so nationally, they it's like, do you know in the business meetings where someone writes down a figure and they slide it across the table and you look? That's what they did. He wrote down like 3,000 or so people. Or he wrote down the number 3,000, sitting across the table and said, Mr. Watts, do you know what this number means? And I was like, no. Like, this is the number of people that since your snowball fight have died from COVID-19. How does that make you feel?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the Sentencing Council has dramatically hit pause on its controversial two-tier guidelines at the 11th hour. And the body that sets sentencing rules for courts in England and Wales was set to introduce new measures on how judges should punish offenders from ethnic minority backgrounds, as well as transgender people and those from religious minority groups. Now, under these new rules, criminals from minority groups could have dodged jail with more lenient sentences. But while the two-tier sentencing has for now been put on hold, there's no sign of change to the advice that judges must prioritise ethnic minorities for bail, citing potential historical trauma. So do we still have two-tier justice, or has common sense returned? Well, joining me now to discuss this in the studio is the criminal defence solicitor Gordon Davis, as well as my wonderful panel. GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, as well as Esther McVeigh, the Conservative MP for Tatton and the former Minister for Common Sense. Gordon, let's start with you. So we're all doing cartwheels about the fact we've gone back to the place where we were just last week, and that is we should be blind before justice. There shouldn't be any preferential treatment. There seems to have been a row back, but do we actually have equity before the law, or actually is the entire system just been captured by this woke mindset?
Well, in a nutshell, I'm afraid to say no, we can't be that optimistic. It's baffled me why Sir William Davis, the head of the Sentencing Council, should ever go against his own report that he commissioned in 2015, the Crown Court sentencing report, that said, actually, there is no evidence that there is systematic discrimination against ethnic minorities in sentencing. They did a really deep dive into this and said round the margins you might find that burglary and stolen goods, the white men got slightly harsher sentences around sex crimes and drugs. Black men got slightly, but there wasn't a statistical correlation that you could say. So this was his own report. Now, there's plenty of advocacy out there, people that come from different parts of the culture wars who would say, oh, yes, there's my lived experience, but you can't rely on that.
No one cares about that.
So why did they even come up with this? Now, I'm afraid there's a deeper malaise in this, and that is, as you alluded to, institutional capture. I have a particular beef about a thing called the Equal Treatment Bench Book, being a lawyer. Now, I don't know if your viewers know about this. I think you might have mentioned it before, Martin.
Stonewall.
Yeah? Well, here's your problem, you see, right? Not to get too technical, but we have to say there's supposed to be a firewall in a democratic system. That is, the executive, the legislature and the judiciary are completely separate. The judiciary should have no part in politics, should look at the law, give guidance to the jury on what the law says and what procedures, and the jury comes to a decision on fact. They must stay out of any political interference. Now, this bench book, written by senior judges, given to other judges, tells a judge in a court how to think on contested social issues. Completely out of order. And they say, well, it's not really law, we're just trying to tell judges how to think. I'm sorry, it is law, and this is the really depressing thing, because back to the Sentencing Council, the Sentencing Council has, when you look at the webpage, if your folks go and have a look at your listeners go and have a look on the webpage, it says in big blue letters at the bottom, as a judge, you must take into account, when you're sentencing, the Equal Treatment Bench Book. That is wrong. Let me give you just one last statistic on this one. I've looked through the number of resources and competent authorities that are cited in this bench book. Number one, with 27 citations, is Stonewall. Shortly behind it, you have the Runnymede Trust. You have a lot of advocacy from a certain part of the political spectrum. This has to be cut. Now, Robert Jenrick, to be fair to him, has tried, but we really need to say, stop this now.
OK, Gordon, expert analysis there. Let's bring you in, Nigel Nelson. There we have it. We can say that there's a victory for common sense today, a victory, beg your pardon, for equality before the law. But if the entire system has been captured by this woke mindset, if that's endemic throughout the entire profession, then this is just a fig leaf victory today.
Well, I don't believe that, because legislation will be put forward tomorrow which will get rid of the Sentencing Council's pre-sentence report guidelines.
You don't think the judiciary has a particular, I don't know, metropolitan liberal mindset?
Again, I'm using an MOJ figure here, but what they're saying is that the various minorities we're talking about on the bail side of it have a higher risk of being remanded in custody than other people.
Is that racism, or they commit worse crimes, or they make bad life choices?
I don't know. I'm just saying that that's the case. So when it comes down to, say, bail, if you've got a woman with young children at home, it would obviously should be taken into account whether you give that person bail or remand them in custody. Because they've got young children at home, and the children shouldn't be penalised for a mother's home
who's got kids thinks, "Ooh, I'll go and nick some stuff today because I'm more likely to get off because I've got kids." They'll play the game.
Yeah, well, the children are not the perpetrators in this case, and they shouldn't be made the victims. So,
but the mother may be using them, weaponising them to get a soft touch.
All we're arguing here is that these things should be taken into account by those people who are deciding whether somebody gets bail. And the same thing applies, in a sense, to pre-sentencing. If there are special reasons, because you're trans, because you come from a religious or ethnic minority,
why should trans people get any special treatment?
It's not a question of special treatment. It's a question of
well, you just said.
A pre-sentence report is to actually guide a judge in what the sentence should be. There may be pertinent reasons why there is a lighter,
anyway.
or not. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't go to jail or something like that.
So you agree with the Sentencing Council? Someone from a trans background,
I don't agree because I don't
get preferential treatment.
I don't like the look of the guidelines, and I think it's right that the government are stepping in to abolish them. What I'm saying is that some guidelines should exist.
Esther.
Well, look, I'm going to take a win when you get a win. Sometimes when you're a politician, you have to take it. And I know Robert Jenrick has been doing a lot, and I know he had an injunction out as well today that if it went through, they would have put an injunction.
But these rules all came in under the Tory watch. They were tabled.
I think the word was very clever, what they said. It was a consolidated report going back to 2016. It had never come out while the Conservatives were in power. It came out afterwards, and that's because they probably knew it wouldn't make the light of day when Conservatives were in office, but it has now. But what I will say, and I absolutely take the point that we need to be alert of it being brought in through different routes. That judicial activism already exists. There's an industry now of people, whether it's charities, support groups or whatever, vying for, offering to support for whatever reason, money, charitable donations or whatever, and they are looking at all of these ruses. I would sooner have sort of not a two-tier justice system, but a blind justice system which says this was the act you committed, this is the sentence for it. We already know when they dole out sentences, mitigation factors will be taken into consideration, but I do not believe because you are a woman or you are an ethnic minority or you are a transgender, you should get somehow a lighter sentence. Absolutely not.
But that is the kind of mitigation we're talking about. That, as I said, I didn't like the Sentencing Council guidelines as written down. The idea that some of these things might be mitigating factors seems to be not unreasonable.
But this has now cemented it and formalised it into a two-tier system, not being absolutely subjective to the person there when they're being sentenced. This is a completely different
Which is why
and let's hope it is. So I think we take the win. We take the win.
Okay, we've got to leave it there, panel. Thank you very much. Gordon, David, excellent, and of course Nigel and Esther, superb stuff. Now, in response to the ethnic minority suspects being given priority for bail, the MOJ told GB News this today. These guidelines were first brought in under the last government. This government will ensure equality in the courts, and we are reviewing current policy that impacts the courts and will be updating practices accordingly. Thank you to Gordon and to my panel. And coming up next, incredibly, one-third of what British taxpayers are contributing to foreign aid. The emphasis on foreign is actually being spent domestically on putting up illegal immigrants. Plus, Netflix is making the controversial drama Adolescence available to all secondary schools in Britain with support from a charity that once got off Twitter because it was offended by Elon Musk. Now, is this a positive step or another example of demonising white working-class boys? That's next.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight. Now, the breathtaking waste of foreign aid has been exposed today in a shocking report by the Daily Mail. Last year, over £15 billion worth of British taxpayers' money was handed out around the world, with communist China, Hamas-controlled Palestine and the Taliban-run Afghanistan receiving millions and millions of pounds of your taxpayers' money. Now, despite calls from experts and members of Parliament for this money to be used here in the UK, much of it is, but not in the way that you might think, because incredibly, 1/3 of what British taxpayers are contributing to foreign aid, emphasis on foreign, is actually being spent here, domestically, in Britain, on housing illegal immigrants on British soil. Now, this serves as a stark reminder that Labour continues to prioritise foreign nations over the needs of its own people. Well, let's get my panel in now, Nigel Nelson and Esther McVeigh. Esther, I'll come to you first. Perhaps this is no surprise to you, but it's a huge, huge chunk of money, 4.3 billion quid of foreign aid being spent on Britain, housing and taking care of foreigners. A lot of people think that just rolls out the red carpet to the rest of the world.
I didn't start like that. So when foreign aid was at 0.7% and people were wanting to reduce it, Rishi took the first step of reducing it to 0.5%. Lots of people within government at the time were saying, well, how do we best use foreign aid then? What are the different ways you can use foreign aid? Would you send it abroad? Or now we have got people who are foreign nationals in the UK, could you better direct that money to spending it on those people when they're in the UK? So I would agree with that. Why would you send it abroad and then have to find an extra 4 or 5 billion from a domestic budget to look after foreign nationals in the UK? So I think that's how it came about. But it has grown, I think, since then. But for me, the long and short of it is we should be cutting back foreign aid. I know it's now going to go down to 0.3 as we put more money into defence. But as far as I can see, when you've got, and here's a statistic, foreign aid going to countries richer than Britain, that's 75%, and 30 countries richer than Lewisham are getting foreign aid. It says to me our money should be spent at home at the moment. You've got pensioners having to go without their winter fuel.
Okay.
You've got farmers not supported. Spend the money at home.
Well, the money is being spent at home. It's been
but more of it.
But it's being spent on people coming to the country illegally.
A lot of aid agencies actually object to the fact that it is being spent on migrants here. However, it's a bit of creative accounting, using that money to deal with asylum seekers at least means it's not coming off another budget. And bear in mind, a whole chunk of foreign aid has now gone into defence. So we're certainly trimming back on foreign aid, as Esther would like to see.
Yeah, but we're spending on foreigners coming to Britain, which many people think is a pull factor, and perhaps that the amount spent should be zero.
Martin, that isn't right. What you would have done was double spend. You would have had all of that 15 billion going abroad.
If you're spending £4 billion on foreigners on British soil, do you think that increases or decreases the propensity of them to make the journey to Britain?
We spend some money on them, Martin. We don't spend that much money.
No, I wouldn't be spending it. You know, this is. But what I'm saying is, it would have been up to 20 billion then. What they're saying is, instead of it going abroad and paying for it twice, they shrunk the foreign aid budget.
Now, let's quickly move on to the next topic. And it broke this afternoon that Netflix has announced that from today, the controversial drama Adolescence will now be available to show in all secondary schools across the UK. And the Healthy Relationships charity Tender will produce guides and resources for teachers, parents and carers to help navigate these conversations in the series. Now, it comes as Keir Starmer today met the creators of the show to talk about young boys being dragged into a whirlpool of hatred and misogyny. Now, my simple question to you, Esther and Nigel, is this: why on earth are we putting dramas that aren't based on reality into schools? And, you know, I've spoken with 50,000 British teenagers in schools about porn addiction and the dangers, and my take is quite simple. This is being used to terrify young girls. It's used to demonise young lads, and especially young white lads. It's got no place in schools.
I disagree on all counts.
Okay,
First of all, this was probably the best drama about contemporary society since Boys from the Black Stuff took on Margaret Thatcher's Britain back in the 1980s. It started a national conversation, which is right. When it comes to a white boy being used, bear in mind this is a TV drama. If you'd introduced race into it, that would have made the narrative more difficult.
Why?
Well,
most stabbings in Britain proportionally take place by ethnic minority or black boys.
Right.
Fact.
And
they use the white boy.
And you have in the series that the senior investigating officer is black. His son goes to the school where the victim and the, killer comes from. And it's the son who tells his father that you're embarrassing me because you're blundering around, but you don't understand what is going on. So that is the point of a series like this going into schools. I think it's more important for parents to see it than school children.
Esther, what's your take on this?
I haven't watched the drama. I hear that it's very good, but I haven't watched it because when I go home, I want to watch escapism and not more misery, so I haven't watched it. However, what I've looked, and because I knew I was going to talk about this, I've looked on Twitter, I've spoken to other people, and I think what people are saying is they think if you are going to show this, then why aren't you also going to show something about grooming gangs so people can get a complete sort of understanding? If you're talking about contemporary Britain, you need to see it in the round. I personally would not be wanting children to watch dramas during their school time. I personally think kids can get away from some of the negative effects of society, and I'd sooner they were doing more maths, more English, more languages, more sport and more music. So no, I don't want this. And Gordon before talked about how we might think we've won this battle with the two-tier sentencing, but he said watch out for the sort of the left-wing sort of penetration, and this is another left-wing penetration telling the story they want to in schools.
A chilling thought, left-wing penetration. Now let's move on now to Patrick Christys, who is here to tell us about some very special guests that he has on his show this evening regarding an extraordinary story that toddlers can be transphobic.
Well, indeed, Martin, thank you very much for having me on. So we all saw that ridiculous story of a toddler being accused of being transphobic and basically booted out of a nursery school. Well, this evening I blow the lid off the fact that this is actually happening up and down the country, with toddlers at nursery schools and with children as young as 6 and 7 years old at their primary schools. Some very brave parents who decided to stick their heads above the parapet. They are coming on to talk about their story, about their child and how they were excluded. Children now are being pumped full of quite hardline, radical LGBT ideology in schools, and when they turn round as infants and say things like, "Why is that boy in a dress?" they end up getting hauled before their school, suspended, permanently excluded, and the parents are called into question as well. This is happening across the country, so I'm going to be revealing that on my show. Just quickly, a couple of other things I've got coming up 9 to 11 as well, Martin. The MPs in this country who've decided to make it their mission to build an airport in Pakistan, do they not know who pays their wages? Is British taxpayers. And I don't know about you, it's an interesting conversation to be had, this. Have we had a lot of Ramadan and Eid celebrations this year? Meanwhile, of course, several Christian celebrations appear to be diluted for the sake of diversity and inclusion. So I've got all that and much more coming your way.
Patrick Christie is a meaty menu. Beautiful, 9 to 11. Look forward to it later on. Thank you very, very much. Patrick Christie's tonight, 9 till 11. Sounds like an action-packed menu. Make sure you tuck in. Now, coming up next, Labour-run Rushmore Council faces the backlash over plans to prevent Christian street preachers for causing offence or distress. Now, is this an unprecedented attack on religious freedom? That's after the break.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, here's your latest winter sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. We'll see some sunshine, a few showers across the western Mediterranean on Tuesday, thundery showers the further east you go. So for the Canaries, Madeira and Portugal, a mixture of sunshine, a few showers, plenty of sunshine across much of Spain, and then we run into some very unsettled weather across central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean. Some thundery downpours here could give a few flooding issues in places. Things do improve in the east over the coming few days, but we'll see showers then developing further west.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. If you enjoyed the sunshine today, well, there's more to come tomorrow and indeed for the next few days. A bit fresh first thing tomorrow morning, but feeling warm by the afternoon. It's not been sunny everywhere today. We've had this weather front, which is now clearing away from northern Scotland, but high pressure has generally been dominant and it will continue to control our weather, bringing many places clear skies overnight. Quite a lot of cloud earlier across Northern Ireland. That's now moving away and the cloud breaking up across Scotland. Increasing chance of some mist and low cloud, maybe a bit of fog forming over parts of the Midlands and eastern England, where temperatures will dip down close to freezing to 3 or 4 Celsius. That's in towns and cities. A bit milder across the southwest, where there will again be a fairly noticeable breeze blowing tomorrow. And it will be a bit breezier around the coasts of Scotland, perhaps just a little bit of ha on the east coast at first, and maybe some cloudy skies to begin with across Shetland. But generally for Scotland and Northern Ireland, far less in the way of cloud tomorrow compared to today. Could start a bit drab over parts of the Midlands, maybe northern England, some mist, low cloud, bit of fog here, maybe East Anglia too, but any mist and fog should clear certainly by mid-morning. And then we're looking at, well, spectacular spring sunshine, really almost wall to wall. There will be a chilly breeze blowing across southern England and South Wales, and a bit breezy across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and perhaps still on the east coast too. And if that breeze is coming in from the North Sea, you'll notice it. Temperatures pegged back as a result. But inland, in the sunshine, 17, 18 degrees, maybe a touch warmer across the northwest of Scotland. Similar day on Wednesday. Again, most places fine and with lots and lots of sunshine. Still a bit breezy in the south and a bit more of a breeze maybe on some of those North Sea coasts. Just a threat of some of that low cloud drifting in. That's going to be more of a feature later in the week, but look at that. Plenty of sunshine and feeling warmer for most Wednesday and Thursday.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the Labour-ran Rushmore Borough Council has sparked outrage by proposing a sweeping injunction that could see Christian street preachers in prison for up to 2 years. And if the injunction is breached, now over claims of causing offence or distress. Now, under the proposed terms, Christians will be banned from praying for individuals, handing out religious leaflets or Bibles by hand, and laying hands on people in prayer, even with their permission. Now, is this an unprecedented encroachment on freedom of religion and expression, or does it strike a necessary balance between individual rights and public order in a diverse society? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Martin Phillips, the legal counsel at Christian Concern. Martin, welcome to the show. So tell me about this case and why you believe that this is your religious freedom being clamped down upon.
Yeah, sorry. Just the first thing is it's Michael Phillips. But yes, so what we have here is a complete and utter destruction of the right to freedom of speech in the Rushmore area, which is Aldershot, which is Farnborough, and this is the first time we've seen anything which is quite as draconian as this. We've seen applications for public spaces protection orders in the past, whereby somebody might be told that you can't have amplification which is too loud, or you might not be able to put out a table, something along those lines. But this is the first time we have seen this set of proposals, which number 8 in total, and it would ban singing. It would ban anything which is deemed to be hostile to a protected characteristic, which is deemed to be sexist or disableist, and it in fact would even ban approaching anyone who was visiting or living within the town centres of Aldershot and Farnborough for the purposes of talking to them about religion. So, in fact, the only thing that you would be permitted to do is just stand there, sometimes as you see with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and have a stand. And if anybody approaches you, that's fine. But anything else will be prohibited. And if you break this, then you could go to prison.
So, Michael, is this a case of you harassing people by shouting through megaphones and being a nuisance with the PA system? Some people have been saying that that's what it is, and it's not quite a clamp down on you, but you're being loud and vocal and irritating, and they have a point. That's what the council said. Is that true, or is that baseless?
Yeah, so first of all, just to say that it is our clients. I'm hopefully going to be one of the solicitors who represent some of these people who are persons unknown at the moment. But that is really the allegation that, say, for example, somebody used some language which offended somebody or maybe raised their voice. Let's just assume for 1 second that might be true. But even if that were to be true, does it therefore follow that you are completely prohibited from singing, from approaching people to talk to them about religion at all? It's just really throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So what needs to happen here is that certain people may well have gone over the top, and in those circumstances, have a chat with them, say, just tone it down a little bit, and then just, knock it on the head in that way, rather than criminalize what is lawful free speech. The whole essence of freedom of speech is the freedom to say that which is offensive. Freedom to say that which is inoffensive is no freedom of speech at all. And that's what Lord Justice Sedley said many years ago when somebody, a lady who was a street preacher, was arrested and prosecuted in a similar fashion. And year after year, the courts have been saying to police, and now should be saying to councils, that you've got to allow people freedom of speech. And that means sometimes people will be offended. It does mean that sometimes people will be a bit upset, but they're not harmed. Okay. Nobody's been hurt, nobody's been hit, but it does sometimes offend people. But that is the nature of a democracy.
OK, Michael Phillips, we have to leave it there. Sorry for calling you Martin. There are quite a lot of Martins in this world. Thanks for joining us tonight on the show. Now, I've got a quick statement here from Rushmore Council, which I need to read out, and it says this. Given the adjourned legal proceedings, we are unable to release specific information, but the council began this action in response to a significant number of complaints from residents and businesses about the behaviour of some street preachers in Farnborough and Aldershot town centres. The council would like to emphasise that the legal action is not intended to prevent peaceful groups of any faith from preaching or in any way prevent freedom of speech. And it goes on. The council is committed to reviewing the proposed injunction, and we will shortly be meeting with a group of faith and community group leaders who we will consult with regularly on a range of different issues to help us with this process. A bit of reaction quickly from my panel. Nigel Nelson, do you think that there's any gravity in this notion that these Christians are being clamped down upon, or do you think they're maybe just being a bit loud?
I think that probably the loudness is the issue. What the council is saying is that there have been a number of complaints about aggressive behaviour. What the preachers say is they sometimes have to be hostile to convert people to Christ. It's that word hostile which is the key here. If they are doing that, then the council is right to clamp down on it and would do so, whatever religion it was, whether Muslim, Jewish...
Is that the case? Do you think that Rushmore Borough Council would clamp down on people preaching on the street if they are Muslims?
If Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, in the event that somebody was being hostile, to use the preacher's own words, or aggressive, to use the council's words, yes.
Esther, quick take from you. Do you think there is some notion that Christians are being clamped down upon because they just don't complain about it enough?
Well, I always say to every force there's an equal and opposite, and I think people who are Christians and Christianity in this country, if people feel it has come under an assault and attack, there's freedoms of religion, but for everybody else but Christians. So maybe these groups are saying, well, we need to be a little bit more vocal, a little bit more forceful for people to take take attention to what we're saying. But I do smile when I walk past. Is it Steve in Parliament Square every week, who's a political with his megaphone, singing, shouting, and nobody has stopped him. And I cannot believe any of these Christians have been as loud as him.
OK, I have to move on there. Nigel Nelson, estimate of a superb. Up next, of course, State of the Nation. Jacob Rees-Mogg, what's on your menu, sir?
Well, I'm slightly following on from this because 20 Rozzers barged in on the Quakers, of all people, the pacifist Quakers, because they wanted to arrest them. And the question I'm asking is, they went into a Quaker meeting house, would they have gone into a mosque? And I think this is really important. I do not think the police would have barged in to the sacred space of Muslims in the way they did for Quakers. And there are other free speech issues as well. I've got Oliver Dowden joining me to discuss this extraordinary case where the Hertfordshire police told a couple and told a councillor not to represent a couple, and they might be had for harassment if they did. This is really odd. And then we get the West Yorkshire police today telling people not to contact a councillor. What is going on? Why is free speech under attack? Why is there no respect, as Esther was saying, for Christians within this country? And how do we get this back again and make sense of it?
Superb stuff. And I do love the word Rozzers.
It's a great one.
It's just a great word, and Rozzers, especially when you say, I don't know what it is. Caught by the Rozzers. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, State of the Nation, is up next. Thanks to my wonderful panel, Nigel Nelson, Ex McVeigh. I'll be back 3 till 6 tomorrow. Next, State of the Nation, but here's your weather with Alex Deacon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. If you enjoyed the sunshine today, well, there's more to come tomorrow and indeed for the next few days. A bit fresh first thing tomorrow morning, but feeling warm by the afternoon. It's not been sunny everywhere today. We've had this weather front, which is now clearing away from northern Scotland, but high pressure has generally been dominant and it will continue to control our weather, bringing many places clear skies overnight. Quite a lot of cloud earlier across Northern Ireland. That's now moving away and the cloud breaking up across Scotland. Increasing chance of some mist and low cloud, maybe a bit of fog forming over parts of the Midlands and eastern England, where temperatures will dip down close to freezing to 3 or 4 Celsius. That's in towns and cities. A bit milder across the southwest, where there will again be a fairly noticeable breeze blowing tomorrow. And it A bit breezier around the coasts of Scotland, perhaps just a little bit of ha on the east coast at first, and maybe some cloudy skies to begin with across Shetland. But generally for Scotland and Northern Ireland, far less in the way of cloud tomorrow compared to today. Could start a bit drab over parts of the Midlands, maybe Northern England, some mist, low cloud, bit of fog here, maybe East Anglia too. But any mist and fog should clear, certainly by mid-morning. And then we're looking at, well, spectacular spring sunshine, really almost wall to wall. There will be a chilly breeze blowing across southern England and South Wales, and a bit breezy across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and perhaps still on the east coast too. And if that breeze is coming in from the North Sea, you'll notice it. Temperatures pegged back as a result. But inland, in the sunshine, 17, 18 degrees, maybe a touch warmer across the northwest of Scotland. Similar day on Wednesday. Again, most places fine and with lots and lots of sunshine. Still a bit breezy in the south and a bit more of a breeze maybe on some of those North Sea coasts. Just a threat of some of that low cloud drifting in. That's going to be more of a feature later in the week, but look at that. Plenty of sunshine and feeling warmer for most Wednesday and Thursday.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could spruce up your spring, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but two sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message.